Cognito Therapeutics has developed a wearable device in an effort to help treat Alzheimer's disease. NYC content creator Ashley Masternardi spoke with the company's chief executive, Christian Howell, about the device and how it was created. Let's take a look.
It's really exciting. We're trying to take a very different approach into brain health. The device and the technology was really discovered out of MIT. So two pioneering neuroscientists, Dr. Liwei Tsai and Dr. Ed Boyden, literally met in a hallway. And Dr. Tsai had been studying the different brain rhythms and the biology that corresponded to the various activity of the brain. And Dr. Boyden had established a career in optogenetics, which is a study of using different modalities to kind of activate the brain. And they got together and they said, well, what if we could activate the brain to a particular level to drive biology that could be very important to preserving cognition and function? And that really gave the start to Cognito. And so they really went about answering a series of questions. One, is an active brain a healthier brain? And they said, yes, it was. Two, what happens when the brain is most active, which is a activity level we call gamma. And what they found was that the brain started to express very important biology for expressing synaptic proteins and myelin generation. There's a system of filtration in the brain called the glymphatic system that came online, and it improved vasoactivity. So that was incredibly important because all of those things really contribute to creating a protective environment for the brain. Then they started asking questions about particular diseases, and that's when they came to Alzheimer's disease, and they said, boy, it looks like patients are really restricted in their ability to get to that activity level and therefore drive that biology. And then the last question was, could they safely stimulate the brain to that level and really over a period of time so that you could get a expression of those sort of key elements? And they found that they could, and that the most effective way to do it was actually stimulating the optic nerve and the auditory nerve with sound and light. And so that's where we've developed this headset, which allows patients to sit comfortably in their home for an hour. They receive light therapy, which stimulates the optic nerve, and sound therapy, which stimulates the auditory nerve, all of which creates a very important neuroprotective and biologic expression in the brain.
Would you say this is a workout for the brain? Is is what it's doing in response to this sound and light, is that versus like the brain just atrophying and not really being active? Is that what is preserving cognition?
It's a wonderful comparison, right? So we learned years and years ago that if we stimulated the heart to a particular heart rate, then we would see this really important downstream biologic expression that would preserve not just cardiovascular, but cardiometabolic health. And the same is true within the brain. So we have 5 different levels of activity, but when the brain is most active at gamma, or what we call 40 hertz, which is the level of oscillation in the brain has all of this downstream biology. And so, yeah, it is very similar to the brain sort of being stimulated, or that same effect that you have when you see someone exercising.
So this is in clinical trials right now. You don't yet have FDA approval. Can you talk about if you're seeing any efficacy data from these trials, and what is your timeline to getting FDA approval?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's something actually we're very proud of. So one, because the device is so safe, right, in the way that we stimulate device, and because the device can be used in the comfort of someone's home, it allows us to very effectively do clinical research. So we are currently in our 5th human study. We just recently enrolled patient 673 in what will be a 12-month randomized sham-controlled trial, which is the largest non-pharmacological study ever done in Alzheimer's disease. So we're very proud of that. But in our phase 2, what we saw was a very profound impact on the preservation of cognition and function in patients. So when we compared the active arm against the sham arm, we saw a 77% preservation of function. And those are the activities of daily living that Alzheimer's patients oftentimes struggle with as their disease progresses. We saw a 76% preservation of cognition. So that's things like memory and recall. And then we saw a 69% preservation of overall brain volume, which is incredibly important, because what that tells us is that biology around myelin and the protective sheath of the neuron were keeping the brain healthy and therefore we're protecting it against the progression of the neurodegenerative condition. So we're incredibly excited. We received breakthrough designation from the Food and Drug Administration, so we get to work very closely with them as we think about our timeline in bringing this to market. Our current study, the HOPE study, our last patient into the study was in July 1st. So our last patient out will be 12 months later in July of 2026. I would expect us to have our top line kind of data readout from that sometime in August of 26. The expectation is to submit to the FDA in the October-November timeframe of 2026. And then given our breakthrough status and the level of interactivity we have with the FDA, we're really hopeful for a marketing approval in the early part of 2027. So, you know, the North Star for us at Cognito is the patient. And I don't know if we could be more excited that the idea that there is a safe, effective, at-home therapy for, you know, over 5 million patients that are struggling with mild and moderate Alzheimer's. So we're incredibly excited about what the future holds.